Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to day 78 of our F225 hot lap and track guides. Yes, we return this weekend here to Lusail and of course the Qatar Grand Prix for what has got to be the worst setup guide I've ever had to do inside this game. Qatar, for some reason, inside F125, just with the F2 car, seems to be so RNG, so kind of curb-based about whether the car's going to bounce off the curbs or not. So this setup, normally to get a lap in, takes me about 30 to 40 minutes. This one took me nearly 2 hours, so it has certainly taken me quite a while to try and get what I thought was a decent representative around this circuit. I don't know if they've kind of made some tweaks to the F2 cars or there's something weird going on with them as well, because I've tried lots of different things with the setup, and whatever the kind of top leaderboard times are doing will definitely not work inside races as well. Of course, if you're new around here and you don't know what this series is about, I basically go through, I provide you with a race-ready setup inside F125. I talk you around the track, what gears you want to be using, where you want to be braking, any other kind of useful nuggets of information that I can possibly provide, and then last but not least, I leave you guys with a hot lap. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of this video. A massive thank you to everybody for their continued support. At the time of recording, we are less than 30 subscribers away from 15k, so yeah, if these videos are helping you out, please make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. But yeah, without further ado, let's head out onto the track. Well, making our way then through the final corner. Third gear there, you want to get right up to the curb and try and get as early on the throttle as you possibly can. The long run then down in towards turn 1, and of course the only DRS zone of the lap. You want to be up, of course, in 6th gear. You want to keep the car right on the white line there, and then just as you get to this outside curb, you want to try and wedge the car out over the curbing. Braking at the 50-meter board from 6th gear, you want to go all the way down to 3rd, ready for turn 1, but try and make sure that you get the inside wheels scooped up over that inside curb there. Get on the throttle nice and early on the exit as you try and maximise the width of the corner, and then again you are aiming for the outside curb through turn 2. You're going to bring the car from 4th gear back down to 3rd, and then once again trying to get it wedged over that inside curb as best as you can. But like I said, every single curb round here feels like RNG with the F2 car. Sometimes it'll grip up, sometimes it'll bottom out and just spin on you, other times it'll just understeer. That's why this track is so difficult to try and get it all hooked up. Up the hill though, in towards turn 4, at the 50-meter board there, you want to go from 5th gear down to 4th. Again, really try and get as much of the car over that inside curve as you can before you're temporarily on the throttle there. A slight blend through the second part, though, is again, try and get as much of the car over the inside curbing as possible. Again, maximising the width off the corner. And then 50-meter board from 4th gear, you want to bring the car down to 2nd. It'll really try to slide and rotate there, but you want to keep it nice and tidy until you can get on the throttle in one smooth motion and get the power down off the exit once more. 4th gear once again, then brake at about 40 meters out as we get towards the top of the hill there once more. 3rd gear on the way through. I try not to take too much curb again, otherwise you just get oversteer, and then once more nice and early on the throttle on the exit. Up through 4th and 5th gear, and then this next right-hander is completely flat out. Drag the car back over to the right-hand side as best as you can, and then just as you kind of go past this outside curbing there, that's kind of my reference marker, is when you go past that curb that obviously takes you on the short circuit. That is when you want to go on the brakes. From 5th gear, you want to go down to 3rd, and then once again, really tricky to try and get it nailed, because you want to get as much of the car over the inside as possible there. Nice and tidy on the throttle though, as the track opens up, and then once again, you're going to be flat out in towards Sector 3. Of course, in a Formula 1 car, all of this nice and easy flat. Not quite the same with the F2 machines. First part is, yep, completely flat out. Second part as well, completely flat. And then as you get into the third one, it is absolutely flat if you nail it. But I like to blend the throttle slightly. Again, making sure you get the car over the inside curb. And then through the final one, brake at the 50-meter board, force the car down in towards 4th gear, just because it gives you a bit of better drive off of the corner, and then you have made it all the way down into the final corner of the lap. 5th gear, brake at the 50-meter board, down to 3rd, and then once again try to get on the throttle as early as possible on the exit. And there we go then, that is going to be a lap of Qatar. Sounds so simple when you talk through it. when it comes to actually trying to get slaps hooked up though around here, it is really, really brutal. In fact, I focused for so long and so hard that I've actually given myself a bit of a headache in this one. So let's head very quickly then back to the pit lane, and I'll talk you through the setup. Having a quick look then at our leaderboard, as you can see, about just over a second away from the top times in the world. But again, they are running very, very much qualifying trim, so those setups will not be fun by the time you try and get into a race there. 48-43 for your front and rear wing. Again, you could run a tiny bit more, but where you've only got one DRS zone, one real opportunity to overtake round here, I would rather just have a little bit of extra straight line speed. Of course, that is mainly dictated by the rear wing, but of course, if you run these two too far apart, then you just get a load more oversteer than what you already have to deal with around this track. It's probably, I would have thought in the F2 cars, the absolute worst in the entire game for track limits. So be really, really careful with it. If you are doing a league race here, track limits will absolutely catch people out, so just make sure you're confident and can keep the car between the white lines. 160 for your on and off throttle diff though, again fairly standard, similar stuff to what we tend to run inside F125 with these F2 machines. Minimum camber and toe angles though, again of course that is always the case with the F2 cars inside this game. 3710 though for your front and rear suspension, 712 for your anti-roll bars, and then 2046 for your ride height. Again, no matter what you seem to do with the ride height here, the car is just going to be unsettled over the curbs. It is so weird, because on pretty much every other track we've been to inside this game, the F2 cars are very nice and gentle over the curbs. But yeah, having to try and make the rear of the car a bit softer as well, just to try and get the power down off of those traction zones. But it does then mean through some of the higher speed stuff, it can be quite sketchy at the best of times. 55-100 though for your brake bias and pressure. Again, completely standard inside this game. And then maxed out front PSI, 23.7 on the rear. This is one of the only tracks in F2 that tyre wear is genuinely on the limit between a 1 and a 2 stop. Of course, if you're doing like a league race or career mode, you gotta stretch the 1 stop because everybody else will, and you lose too much time pitting as well. So yeah, just be really, really careful with it, especially of course with those left-hand side tyres with all of the right-handers around this track. But yeah, all I can say to you guys is good luck. This track combo with these F2 cars, it's one of the first times I've said it inside F125, is just terrible, in my opinion. It just is not fun to try and get it hooked up around here as well. But yeah, hopefully this video has helped you out. If it has done, like I said in the intro, please make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. I'm going to leave you guys with a hot lap, and I will see you all for the final F2 race of 2025 next time out at Abu Dhabi.